What is going on, you guys? It's your boy Average Bob, and in today's video, we are going to recap the 2024 Giants season. And before we dive into things, this is something that a video that I've been wanting to do for quite some time at this point. Just the season ended. I needed to get the poor taste out of my mouth about how bad this season went, and just wanted to just take a breather from thinking about how much I kind of hate where the organization is at this point. Not that it's much easier at this point that I'm recording this video. And in the NFC Championship upcoming this weekend, you have the Eagles versus the Commanders. Saquon looks amazing, and Jaden Daniels looks really good for the Commanders. So, what we're going to cover off in this video, I want to just do a recap of every single position. We're going to talk about coaching. We'll talk about offense, defense, special teams. My final thoughts on the season, what went wrong, what we need to be improved on as we move into this offseason and next year. And with that, we're going to be going into a lot of stuff. I'm going to be ranting a lot. So I'm going to put timestamps down below. If there's a certain position you want to jump over to, we'll go into that because we're going to get started really at a high level and dive through every single thing. And before we get started, I just wanted to note one thing. I'm probably going to do recap videos for the AFC Championship, NFC Championship game, Super Bowl. Might do the National Championship, which is happening in a little bit tonight. So don't be too concerned if you see some more national sort of stories or scenarios that I'm going to be posting about. Again, at the end of the day, the Giants are the team that I love. This is what this channel has been, really founded on, and hopefully we could get back to where we need to be. But man, just watching the playoffs and watching these other teams play, this team is still so far away from what they need to do to be successful. And so, with that, let's get started. Let's dive into things. First and foremost, one of the biggest issues this season, I thought, was the coaching. We'll talk about players and stuff, but let's get started talking about coaching. Brian Daboll took the reins from an offensive play calling perspective and kind of put Mike Kafka in some weird sort of like second fiddle role where he was helping the quarterbacks and then I guess an advisor. And kudos to Kafka. He is getting some looks for head coaching still, which I thought would all but go away after the success in 2022. Last year was 2023 was kind of a joke anyway you sliced it. I don't think anything was really Kafka's fault in that regard. And then this year, no blame can really be pinned on him because Daboll called the plays, which I thought Daboll was very unimpressive. I know he really wasn't working with much, but again, this is year three of a team that him and Shane had built. So you would like to think that a guy who could have won Coach of the Year just a few short seasons ago would have been able to, I don't know, figure out and develop some sort of a semblance of better game plans instead of just letting so many games, go sideways. And then there's, weeks would just snowball where like, okay, you almost win one game. And then 4 or 5 weeks later, you're like on your seventh loss in a row, and there's literally no hope whatsoever. I think David did do one thing that he spoke about in the Hard Knocks from last season was talking about his anger and temper, which we did see flare up a couple times this year. But I think that's just not what good coaches do. I mean, look at the coaches that you have remaining right now. Um, I don't think any of them ever. You don't see them ever screaming in guys' faces. That's things that bad teams do. It loses locker rooms quickly, and at a certain point, Andy Reid isn't going to be yelling in Mahomes' face about, or an interception or something, obviously because it's Mahomes, but it's also because the NFL players are making ungodly amounts of money, much more than the coaching. So if you start screaming at guys, they tune you out. This happens time in and time out, season over season for many teams. So Dable, I think, didn't do well in that regard. But moving forward, and this is the thing that bugs me, and I did want Dable gone. Um, I don't think you had one season, then the last two have been horrifically coached. I don't care. Guys get hurt all the time. Other teams somehow get past this. The Giants didn't at all. They've regressed season over season, and to the point where you win 3 or 4 games and you're going to come back and have your job. In all walks of life, if you had the season that Brian Dable would have at your day-to-day job, you would be fired. And I think that should have equated to him losing his job here. So you could also say the flip side of that argument would be, who would you want to replace him with? Is there anyone? And, were those options better than him? And I think the answer to that is it doesn't matter. We know at its worst what Brian Daboll could do, and it's not much. Um, and here's the thing that I think bothers me the most is they'll get either a bridge quarterback or maybe they'll draft Shador Sanders or Cam Ward. But when the Giants again start 2-6 or 1-7, and because they have a very tough schedule, um, people are going to be the Boo Birds will be out in the stadium like they haven't taken a day off. Deservedly so. They should. If you're paying your hard-earned money, you should be booing and saying whatever you want. And I think it's going to translate to that very quickly next year. You'll have a week one loss to the Cowboys, who will have a new coach, and they'll get momentum. Um, I just think for him to come back after how piss poor of a season that they had is it's a little asinine, and it's going to blow up in the Giants' face. So then you're going to be looking at firing Brian Daboll in midseason, whether as a rookie or a veteran quarterback, and then what? You're kind of back to square one, kind of what you should have done this past year. The Jets did it last year with Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers. The Bears also did it last year with their head coach and Caleb Williams. The year before that, Bryce Young and Mark Wright, I believe his name was, for the Panthers. So any way you slice it, just because you do draft a quarterback young doesn't always give you that window that you think you might have, especially when the losses piled up and they pile up season over season. And then what are you going to be doing then? Restarting you're going to have a quarterback who's young in a whole new system and a whole new coach. So I think this was a terrible decision by John Mara and the Giants front office. They probably should have just moved on and give everyone a clean start. Um, and the players do love him, but also the players loved Joe Judge before he was fired. And it does get a little annoying and fall on deaf ears when you have players, who've kind of sucked all season, and then they're like, we need to win for a coach and blah blah blah. It's like, well, maybe if you guys played with more passion and played better throughout the entire season, your coach's job wouldn't be on the chopping block because of your poor play. So, um, to that extent, I wanted him gone. We'll see what happens as the next season progresses, how long he makes it. If I had to bet on him making the full season, I would say there's a less than 0% chance. Um, because data shows us, he's not going to get too much leeway, and the Giants have a really, really tough schedule next year. So that's my thoughts on Brian Daboll. He's going to get a quarterback that he's going to get a quarterback. Is it going to be the guy that he wants? We'll see in the draft or free agency, but time will tell. I would have to imagine they'll have to bring in a couple guys, but we could talk about quarterbacks in a few minutes. I'll just finish up by speaking about Bowen, the defensive coordinator, because there's not much to really say about Kafka, as he's kind of just there. So next up to talk about Bowen, I thought the Giants defense, massively regressed again. It was a season after Wink Martindale had left, and he didn't have a great season in Michigan. Michigan was down across the board anyway. But for Bowen to come in, he had a tough task, right? And kind of reshaping the identity of the defense after it was blitz, 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 blitz. Then you're gonna have to reshape that, and that was a fail. You had a lot of guys quit. Obviously, some guys got injured too. But I don't know. His game plan, I don't think, was that great. And, a lot of the guys that were on the team that were brought in previously were brought in to be like, we're blitzing the hell out of this. So definitely a scheme change that I'm not sure quite fit exactly what Bowen was looking to do. And really the only success that we could touch on when we get to the defense is Dexter Lawrence. So, and, you're just trying to build on getting those rookies sometimes. So talk about Bowen. If there's someone that would probably get fired after the season, I think it'd be him. And is that fair? No, but that's the way it is. Someone probably has to go, and it's not Daboll or Shane, so it would probably be the lowest hanging fruit changing coordinators on the defensive side. Next up, let's get started by talking about the most important position in football, the quarterback. So after the Giants invested 160 million into Daniel Jones, and what maybe like a dozen games over 2 seasons, they had him playing scout team free safety, and then he after that practice he eventually asked to be released. Utter disaster on all counts by the second they let Saquon walk and re-signing Daniel Jones. I do understand why they did both of those moves, but they absolutely, on both ends of that, blew up in their face to the point of being a joke meme every single day. And it sucks. And so to get started on Jones, I really wanted nothing but success for him. It was just season over season. No one, I don't think any other quarterback in the history of the NFL will probably have the amount of reps and time and games started to prove that didn't really have it per se, or the Giants never also helped him out too. But there is a certain point when you are making $160 million, you kind of have to make other people better around you, and uh, you know there was tremendous amount of excuses for the offensive line last year. Yeah, no, definitely tons of excuses. Three quarterbacks got hurt. The offensive line was dreadful, historically setting 2023 sack level NFL season, right? And to that extent, Daniel Jones also tore his ACL. So there was a lot on his plate coming back to this year. Um, that was kind of against him. And again, he had every single chance to prove the haters wrong and, earn every dollar of his contract. And, he tried. I will say that there's two things about Daniel Jones that cannot be questioned. His toughness, absolutely got his ass kicked year in and year out, game in and game out. And he got up every time. And then also the ability that he had to deal with the media when he could have thrown any teammate under the bus at any given point throughout his entire career. He was very measured in any way he addressed the media, and I thought that there's something for that because now when you see like Malik Neighbors talk, it's just like, oh my god, like get the microphone away from him. So I think Daniel Jones will, maybe he'll have success somewhere else. I kind of hope he does. I'm rooting for the guy, to be completely honest with you, because he had every chance to be an asshole, and he didn't. He was a man about it. Um, and yeah, I mean, it just kind of sucks. And if you go back and watch some of those first games, looks like a completely different player from what we had seen in the last year or two. Can't throw the ball down the field, just eating sacks. Everything looked bad. So I feel bad for him, but again, he had every single chance to right the ship and never really did. And maybe injuries piled up for him to the point where he was in his own head a little bit too much and could never really get out of that. But I'll always respect him for the 2022 season and Saquon for that as well. Um, and that's it. He'll be him and Saquon will also be faces of that era of Giants football that was shockingly bad. Had one good season, and yeah, an era of just bad Giants football that we're not going to be getting out of anytime soon. So with that, kudos to Daniel Jones. All the success to him, which brings us to the backups here, who we saw play this year. Drew Lock they brought in. Didn't really play for a while this year. Actually, when they did get rid of Jones and they went to Tommy DeVito immediately, and Drew Lock was kind of like, it was weird. And I think the front office and coaching staff's done a really weird job with dealing with some stuff where Drew Lock, the media's asking him questions at his locker, being like, hey, you thought you were brought in to be the backup and maybe challenge Daniel Jones for a job. And he's like, I don't know. No one's really said anything to me. Like, I know just as much as you, which is really weird considering how this season went. So Drew Lock did have that one crazy, I think 4 or 5 touchdown, 4 passes, 1 rushing touchdown against the Colts, which was like, where was this the entire year? Why? Also, man, the Colts, they needed to win that game for like potential playoff opportunity, and then that happened to them. So it was really weird. I don't want to take anything really positive that Drew Lock can play for us moving forward based on that one game. I wouldn't bring him back if it was me personally. I think I saw enough to know that he was given again another guy given every fair shake to be successful. Couldn't do it. So kudos. I hope he does well somewhere else. And if they do choose to bring him back, I hope it's not just him. I hope there's a significant amount of competition in the quarterback room next camp and let the cream rise to the top, and whoever could win. So next up on that list, another free agent, Tommy DeVito. I would have to imagine this is the last we've seen of Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito was a bright spot in the 2023 season. But again, when you look at those Tommy DeVito wins and you cheer him on because you're happy that your team can finally win a game and this random hometown kid's playing well, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot because you would have had a chance at Jaden Daniels. Not to say Jaden Daniels would be the way he is right now playing for the Commanders, but you shoot yourself in the foot and you lose out on that guy, which really sucks because he looks really good. And, Tommy DeVito, I don't think should be on the team after this year. And I think he's proven that he's not really an NFL tier quarterback. I think he's done everything in his power to maximize what he has done, on the field to make more money, which I think, he should do. So it'll be interesting to see, where he ends up. Maybe they bring him back and make him a practice squad guy, but I'd have to imagine that he would want a chance to either be a backup somewhere else and maybe challenge for I don't think he's a starter, but at least like challenge to be a backup because I think the Giants need to do some things after this season and cut bait with certain players, whether they like them or not. But just to get the awful taste of these last 2 seasons out of our mouth with a fresh start, because the fresh start isn't coming from a coach or GM. It's going to come for the players at this point, and I think he's one of them. Unless he's going to be a practice squad guy, I really don't want to. If we see him play again, we're in a really bad spot. But again, we are kind of in the dark ages now, and maybe at the end of that there is a renaissance. That's usually happens at the end of medieval ages or dark ages, and we're in that right now. So hopefully the Giants can find their next quarterback and begin a renaissance. Next up, I guess we'll. I don't want to dive too deep into like a preview for quarterbacks of who I want or what. I'll do a whole nother video about that. So we'll just keep this strictly on the 2024 season. So next up, let's talk about running backs. First and foremost, the two new guys that came in after Saquon's departure were Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. Let's start on Singletary. They paid him a couple $1 million to come in and backfill for Saquon. You could see in the Hard Knocks that Shane had that familiarity with him from the Bills. They absolutely loved him. He also suffered significantly from fumbleitis early in the season, lost a starting job to Tyrone Tracy amid getting injured as well, which led to Tyrone Tracy Jr. come in, who's looked amazing. He had over 1,000 combined rushing and receiving yards, so very versatile in that regard. And the Giants seem to really like him. Akin to when they get Wan'Dale Robinson open for some of these plays, the Giants did that a lot with Tyrone Tracy Jr. And I think, the future is very bright for this guy. He doesn't have the wear and tear of someone who played running back their entire life as he played running back later in life. In college, he transitioned from wide receiver to running back. So doesn't have that mileage, wear and tear of someone who probably started in middle school or high school, which is great. And it's also the case of being a great athlete. And that's what Tyrone Tracy Jr. is. And he had a great rookie season. I think the sky is the limit for him. I would like to obviously see another complimentary piece come in here as well, because we've seen what could happen when we hand the ball off like 30, 40 times a game to a guy. So letting guys play to what their skill set is, and complimentary football in that regard in the backfield is something I would like to see a little bit more of next year. So we'll see what happens there. Motor Singletary, I'm sure he'll come back if he's not a cap casualty or something, but I think I've seen just about enough out of him. And the third guy on that depth chart who is kind of a special teamer and had some bad fumbles, again, another fumbleitis guy, is he in his second year? I think it was his second year, Eric Ray. We did have a pretty productive preseason, had a bad fumble, and then he got, never proven that he should be the starter on this team. So great to see that. And yeah, maybe he'll stick around if you could play special teams. I think there's always a role for you there. So that covers off on running backs, and for next year, I mean, I think Tyrone Tracy's great. Singletary, it's like whatever quality veteran backup, but like I don't really want to see him get too many reps. I wasn't all too pleased with him, and if we wanted to move on from him, I'm totally completely cool with that as well, or have someone else who's a little bit more dynamic than him. Moving ahead to wide receivers, let's get started by talking about the prolific rookie season from Malik Neighbors, who ended up having a rookie catches record receptions, which or a season like that, like him and Brock Bowers and Jaden Daniels, there are some ballers that came into this league, and Malik Neighbors was one of them. If you watch some of the highlights from the Colts game again, man, this guy is something special. I'm really excited to see what he could do in the future. He's one of the building pieces that will be core and crucial from this team. One of the biggest red flags, though, was just the quarterback play was setting him up to get killed. And there is a certain degree of that happening around the league, but my God, like the hospital passes from Jones and Locke and DeVito, it was really opening him up to a high propensity of injuries. And I think it was the Cowboys game where eventually he did get knocked out, and it was just by him hitting the ground. So, uh, really, it was a gritty first season for him. I think he's awesome. The sky's the limit with him and Tracy. So, yeah, let's see what we could build on in year two for him. I think just the only thing, and I've said this a couple times throughout, is just from the maturity standpoint. Honestly, people were like, "Hey, do a video about him, yeah, going in the concussion protocol and then going out to like a Travis Scott concert or some sort of cool hip rapper that I don't know about." And honestly, I didn't want to do it because I think he's young. He's 21, 22 years old. Like everyone makes mistakes, everyone does dumb shit, and if him just wanting to go to a concert is something that I'm gonna crucify him for, like I don't really see the point in that. I think you live and you learn, and I think the New York media and people's anger and bad seasons is definitely ratcheted up. But is going to a concert when you have a concussion dumb? Probably, but honestly, I don't really care. I think it's just more of like the way he deals with the media is something that needs to be addressed a little bit. I guess there's two sides to it, right? Are you happy to see someone just be completely unfiltered about, I didn't get the ball? I don't know. Ask coach. I did my job. I think it gets a little bit of a slippery slope once you start, or like me, I. So we'll see. I think we're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not gonna hate on him. I think the future is very bright for him, and I'm looking forward to see what he could do moving on to year two, and hopefully, he's a stupid flashy gadget for whatever quarterback is throwing passes in 2025. Next up, Darius Slayton. He's a guy who's been on the team for a while, slowly etching his name into Giants like history for career receptions and yards. Again, he's also someone, he's been here, but people don't have the same like profound um love and respect that they had for Darius Slayton compared to someone like Sterling Shepard. Maybe because Shepard played more with Eli and whatever, but um yeah, I think Darius Slayton's someone who's, again, like I mentioned for Saquon and Jones, he's part of an era of terrible Giants football. Um, and when he's played, he's done okay. He's not a wide receiver one, probably like a two or three. So I was kind of hoping that they would have traded him last year. Um, and if he is up for free agency, what would be our thing for paying him? I wouldn't. I don't know. At this point, I think I'd rather see someone else. To be honest with you, I don't think he's a bad guy or anything. I think he's just been a part of a lot of bad Giants football, and I would like to see, I don't know, someone new. Like we have to shake things up. We have to move on from guys who have been here for a while and part of the losing culture, because that's all they know. And mediocrity cannot be, where the Giants are at moving forward. When you look at how good the rest of the division is at this point. Next up is a guy who I do love, Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he had one of the craziest stat-related seasons in quite some time where I think he averaged like between 4 or 6 yards a catch or something crazy because he had so many receptions, but they were for such few yardage and going downfield. He also is not getting that yard after catch that some other guys are getting when they do get play calls in space or right around the line of scrimmage on those drags or flat routes. But um, 2 years ago he tore his ACL pretty bad. No, not 2 years ago. 2023 he tore his ACL, right? And then he came back last year, this full season. So I thought he did pretty good coming off that injury. You know, let him keep getting better and see what could happen this offseason if he gets a ratings bump and comes back and is balling out. But again, very nice safety blanket, short yardage guy who plays that slot role to a T. So I don't know. I don't know why I'm so like I want Slayton, but I don't give a shit about Slayton, but I care about Wandell. I don't know. Maybe I just like him. And I can't explain it. Next up is Jalen Hyatt. I think year two, which was somehow worse than his rookie year, and this was a guy that the front office traded up to get. Uh, he doesn't really play. He doesn't do really anything. Third round pick, they thought could do something. I guess his skill set is so based on vertical route running, and he could ever develop his route tree besides that, which is kind of crazy to think that someone playing wide receiver their entire life. This is what I always. I don't want to go off on too much of a rant, but this guy's played wide receiver his entire life and can't get off the line of scrimmage and can't work on drills to figure out how to beat press coverage and stuff like that. Just wild to me. But yeah, I mean, he's still on his rookie contract, but if he doesn't have it when camp rolls around and can't win its job, I don't know. He's someone else I would consider moving on from. Sometimes you got to take your L's and just move on from them. That's what other teams do. The Giants, I think, have the data is showing they'll stick around with guys for way too long that don't have it. So if he's not ready to rock next season, I'm done with him. I'm sorry if I'm looking at the computer because there are some names here, but we don't even have to go into detail with them. Next up, the tight end situation. After Darren Waller retired the previous offseason, then that left a gap there where the Giants filled that by taking Penn State tight end Theo Johnson, who by all makings, I think had a pretty productive first season. There was one guy in the comments. He's like, "You're the first person who doesn't like Theo Johnson that I've seen." I'm like, it's not that I didn't like him. They were really going to the well on him to try and make, what's that movie Mean Girls? It was like, stop trying to make it a thing. Like the Giants were trying to make Theo Johnson a thing. Maybe because there was really no one else, and they're still working on Neighbors, and someone else has to step up. But pretty productive rookie season. I forget what his injury was. I hope it's not too arduous of a rehab, and he can come back and have a good, year two. Because we need guys. We need building block guys like him, Neighbors, and the defense as well, Tracy. So that left the door open for my boy Daniel Bellinger. I'm so pro Danny B. I've loved him for years, but again, he got screwed in a couple games this year with bad phantom holding calls. I don't know what else the Giants. The Giants just don't seem to like him. Maybe because they didn't use a high pick on him or something. But I love Daniel Bellinger. I think he's good. He's he. I just maybe I'm being a little nostalgic where I see him and I could see a little of Kevin Boss, a little of Jake Ballard. Like I could see that in Daniel Bellinger. So it gives me. I don't know. I think like he could be good. I don't know. Maybe he sucks and they'll probably cut him. I don't know. But I like him. Fine is tight end too. Again, could that position be upgraded? Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of positions on this team need to be upgraded. So moving ahead to the offensive line, much better this year compared to the year before. Again, you did have several quarterbacks get hurt, some bad sack game, but much better than the 2023 season. So that was great to see. And started by bringing in a couple key acquisitions like Jermaine Illuminor and John Runyon Jr. Let's get started by talking about Jermaine Illuminor, who had I think he missed a couple games for injuries and whatnot, but pretty productive first season with the team. Guy who is super excited about it coming in and being on the Giants, which is refreshing to see as well. because the culture's been so bad. So yeah, time will tell. We'll see how he does next year. Uh, John Runyon ended up on the injured reserve, so really tough to gauge. But I thought he was okay. Next up, John Michael. He's been pretty. I don't know. I want him to be good. He is a little bit older, but I feel like he just gets his ass kicked. There was just some bad plays this year where we're watching the tape, and I'm like, they're free runners just coming right through, and it is like his guy to pick up. So I would like to see him get a little bit better. This I don't know. Uh, and then the next guy that I want to talk about, Greg Van Roten came in. He was signed like a week or two before the season started, and he played every single offensive snap or started every game. And then at the end of the season, they moved him to center. So kudos to Greg Van Roten. Came into this, really wasn't even a part of the team until the season started, but he played like he really cared. And kudos to him for doing it at 34 years old, 35 years old. I think he did enough 100%. I would let him come back next year, compete, start again. Like shit, who until someone could beat him or until he can't play anymore. Like I think that's his job, 150%. Long Island guy, Chaminade guy, seems pretty nice from everything that I've heard. So, yeah, I hope he comes back and has this really successful, twilight of his career. And I hope it's with the Giants. And he's done nothing but ball out since he's been here, which is the exact opposite that we could say about the next player in Evan Neal. Man, I could probably end up doing a whole long video about Evan Neal. I have done a couple already. Um, Evan Neal's someone that they brought in, and he just has kind of regressed year over year. He's always hurt. And when we drafted him, guys, no one was more pumped than me to get like a 6'7", 340-pound tackle from Alabama. I said, this is the prototype body. This is a guy who's played the position his entire life. I'm absolutely stoked on him. And I still want him to be successful. Do I think he's earned another opportunity to go into this season without any competition and play right tackle for this team? Absolutely not. So where does that leave you with him? Because Andrew Thomas is coming back. Luminor play tackle. So you're going to leave him as the odd man out again and hope that he gets a little bit better. I don't know if that's the right move. And if he can't, I would be like, this is your final chance. You got to learn to play every single position. If you can't be versatile in this offensive line and you could only play one position that you're going to suck at, then trade him for anything or just cut him. That's the sad reality of his situation. And there is a large group of people that are saying move him to guard. Look at Mekhi Becton on the Eagles. He sucked on the Jets as a tackle. Move him to guard. He's having great success. But the Eagles have way better offensive line coaching. They have way better. Sorry that we got to the 30-minute mark of that video and it cut out. But the Eagles have way better offensive line play, and they're able to develop better. Giants haven't been able to really develop any offensive linemen. If you could name one, I'd love to hear it. And you could say Andrew Thomas, but let's move on to Andrew Thomas. He'll come back. He'll be given his left tackle starting position back. But now we have to say, kind of got an injury bug next to his name. 2023 missed the majority of the season with a hamstring. Last year got hurt pretty badly. So 2 straight years, 2 straight injuries. I mean, can he be depended on to play a full season at this point? I hope. I really like Andrew Thomas. I want him to be good. I want him to play. We need him to be good. But can he? I don't know. That's 2 straight seasons. So maybe you do have Neal stick around because the injury bug with these guys is they can't play a full season. So I hope Andrew Thomas can come back. I hope he could be successful. 1, because I love him. 2, because we need him to. And that wraps up the offensive line. Moving ahead to the defense. Let's get, just looking at the listed starters right now for who was in our base 3-4 defense. At left defensive end, you had Raheem Nunez Roches. Jordan Riley, Elijah Chapman. Um, and yeah, this was a defensive line that really, there were a lot of question marks going into it besides our boy Sexy Dexy. Pro Bowl, All Pro season from him. Unfortunately, he got hurt again, which sucked because he was really, I think, one of their only reasons to watch play, which is kind of crazy to even say, hey, you should watch a Giants game because the interior defensive tackle is really good. But that was the truth. He was so above and beyond anything I've seen personally. I might be running out of hardware here on my computer as it just cut out again, but Burns, okay. McFadden, I thought he had a great year last year. Can't wait to see what he could do moving forward. Kayvon, again, similar to Neal. These guys are getting every single opportunity. Kayvon, sometimes you don't notice him, and I would love to see him be way better. I don't know what to make. I honestly really don't know what to make of him. Sometimes he looks good. Sometimes he takes plays off, and you're like, where is this guy? I haven't heard his name in like 6 games. And again, another guy injury bug, which is tough. Moving ahead to the secondary, let's get started by talking about Deonte Banks. The second-year guy took, I thought, a tremendous step backwards this year. And it was like a coaching thing. He stopped playing. He stopped caring. It was really weird to see. And I just hope he's not at a point where he's unfixable, because obviously the scheme changed from Martindale to Bowen, and so did his trajectory of actually being able to play. So they might have to figure out a way to either, like, is Travis Hunter a potential draft candidate here at 3 from Colorado to play cornerback? And then also on the flip side, they brought back Dory Jackson, Cordell Flott. I don't know. They need a lot of help at this. They need a lot of help at the secondary position again, guys. And at safeties, you got Dane Belton, Jason Pinnock, Tyler Nubin was having a pretty successful season until he got hurt. And Drew Phillips as well. 2 rookies that played really well. Need to see what they could do and build on. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt.